Hello everyone, my name is Govind and today we'll be creating this Flappy Bird game using Java and IntelliJ IDEA. This is how the game runs. We click start and when we press space our bird jumps. As you can see the score increases and as we touch the pipes the game is over. We press restart and then we start again and the game has restarted. Now let's create this. So to get started I have my IDE open here and the one I'm using is IntelliJ. It's really good for Java. First, let's create our new project folder. We will go here and click New Project, and I will name this Flappy Bird Game. I will have this saved in my Downloads folder on my computer. Okay, now we press Create. Okay, we have a main class, and we will create another one here called Game Panel. This will be for organization. We click on this plus sign, click on Java class, and then name it GamePanel.java. Great, now let's upload the images that we will be using. You can find all these images along with the source code below in the description on my GitHub. So I have 4 images over here. I have 1 bird, 2 pipes, and a cloud. I will drag and drop all of these into my src folder. To get started, let's get rid of all of this code. Okay, firstly, we will import the Java Swing class at the top over here. We write import java x.swing.star. The star means to import every utility in the Java Swing class. Okay, now let's create our main class. We write public class main. Okay, and then brackets, then public static void main, and then string square brackets, and then args. Okay, now let's create a frame object and give our game a title. We write jframe frame is equal to new jframe, and then in over here we will write the title of our game. And we will call this Flappy Bird. Okay, now let's create an object for the game panel class. We write game panel is equal to new game panel. Okay, let's add this to our main frame. Frame.add panel. Now let's give our screen a new size. We write frame.setSize, and then the dimensions. We'll give it 850 by 500. Okay, now let's just add some basic functions to our game over here. The first one will be to simply just exit the game whenever the X button is clicked. We write frame.setDefault close operation. Then we write jframe.exit on close. And we set this resizable to false. And we set the visibility to true. Set visible true. Now let's move on to the game panel class. So this class will take care of all the drawing and movement for our game. First, let's import the necessary classes. We'll do that up here. Let's import a Java Swing again. Okay, we'll grab everything. Okay, and then java.awt.star, and then java.awt.event. So this will handle this is for all of the event handling on our game. And then we will also import the random class for the random pipes when they regenerate. Okay, now here we have our game panel class. This class basically takes care of everything from drawing in our game to the physics of our game. And this class over here, we will make it extend jpanel. That is, jpanel is basically the panel in which Java draws everything. Extends jpanel and implements all of these listeners. That will be the key listener, the action listener, and the mouse listener. Okay, and for all of these, we will need to have necessary methods. Though we will not be using all of these methods, we still need to have them for our game to run. So let's just add them over here. I can quickly do this through IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, so these are all of the methods that are necessary. I will just comment around these so I know to put them at the bottom and just use them whenever they're necessary. Okay, and do the same thing to the bottom. Okay, now let's make our constructor class. We write public, then game panel, brackets. Okay, now what we'll add next is to render images smoothly. We write set double buffered to true. Okay, and we set it to true. Now let's set the background color. We write set background, and here we will add our color. So I've already pre-selected the color, and this will be a hex code, so we will write color.decode, and then the hex code in these strings. This is hashtag 87CEEB. Okay, great. Now let's add our listeners. We write, first of all, the key listener. We add key listener relative to this, which is the constructor class, and then the mouse listener relative to this again, and we set them focusable to true. And then we set the focus traversal keys enabled to false. Traversal keys enabled, we set this to false. And this line of code basically tells our program to stop intercepting special keys. Okay, now let's create a paint class to draw everything on the page. We first of all override this at override, and then we create our class public void paint component, and then as a parameter we'll pass through the graphics, and we'll name this G. Okay, now this next line of code will clear the old drawings that are still on the page. We write super.paint component, and then G. Okay, now let's draw the ground. Again, first of all, we set a color, g.set color, and then we use another hex code that I've already pre-selected. This is hashtag 56AE57. Okay, now we create a rectangle for the ground. We write g.fillRect, and then its x component will be 0, it will be at y400, and the width of it will be the width of the panel. So panel width, this is a variable that we will create later. And then the width, the height of it will be 100 pixels. Okay, now let's go create this panel width variable. Okay, at the top over here, these will be the final variables that we create. So private, and then int panel width, and then we set this to 850. Now let's test our game. We run it, and we see that we have a light blue background and a green ground. Okay, perfect. Let's exit this and continue. Okay, now let's upload images onto our screen. For that, first we'll be creating variables for the images. Let's do that over here at the top. Image variables. Okay, we write private, and then image, and then bird. Okay, and then we do this all for all the other images. We're going to create 6 pipes. So there'll be 3 sets of 2. One on top, one on bottom. So we write pipe 1, and then copy and paste this. And we're going to do this 6 times. Okay, pipe 2, and then 3. Okay, now let's also get our cloud. So we're going to write private image cloud. Now let's set their coordinates. So we'll organize them so we have variables that don't change and variables that do change. And the ones that don't change will be these final variables. Okay, let me just fix this one real quick. This doesn't have the final keyword. Private final. Okay. Now, let's set it for the bird. We're going to write private final, int bird x. We're going to set this to 50. And then the width of the bird and the height as well. Private final, int bird width. Let's set this to 55. Same thing for the height. This will set to 55. Okay, now let's do the pipe height and width. Private final, int pipe height. We'll set this to 250. And then we'll set the width to 50. Okay, now we have variables that do change. So I'm going to create a separate section for that. And these will be our changing variables. Okay, and we have private double, because the bird y value will be a double. It won't be integer. It's equal to 300. And then the x for the first one, first set of pipes. So we're going to write pipe x set 1. Set 1. And right now we'll set it just so that we can see them on the screen. Okay, let's do that. And we're going to do this 2 more times. Set 2, and then set 3. Okay, now let's set the y values. With the private int pipe 1y. And right now we'll just set this to 280, but later we'll have this so that they are random. Okay, and then 2y. This is going to be the pipe on top. So we're going to have a negative value just so that it doesn't show all the way. Okay, and then 3 will be the one on top. Okay, and then last 2. 5 and 6. And number 6. Okay, let me just fix this one as well. Okay, that's great. Now let's go to our constructor class and load these images. Okay, I'm going to do this over here at the top. Let's load these images. So we're going to do that by writing image icon. And then we'll set a variable b for bird. And we write new image icon. And then we write get class dot get resource. And then this is where we type the URL of our image. So we're going to put that in strings. And then we put / bird1.png. bird1.png. Oh, let me just fix this slash. It's supposed to be the other way. Okay, now we do this for the rest of the images. We get p1 for pipe 1, or we'll actually name this to p up, because it's the one that looks up. P up, I think. I'm going to just double check. Yeah, this is the one that looks up. So we write p up. Or I'll write p bottom actually, because it's the one on the bottom. And this will be p top, because it's the one on top. Okay, pipe 2. And then let's also put the cloud. Let's also put the cloud here. Cloud. No, but this is C. Okay, and as we hover over these images, we can also see that they're there. Yeah. Okay, now let's scale these images. I'm going to do this right below here. Scale images. Okay, let's write bird is equal to b.getImage. So this will grab the image, and then get scaled instance. And then we put the dimensions that we want. Okay, and then we write this at the end, image.scale_smooth. Image.scale_smooth. This will make sure that our picture is not blurry when we scale it. Okay, I'm going to do this for the others as well. Pipe 1. P bottom. P bottom. Okay, and then pipe width, pipe height. And I'm actually going to copy this one instead. Yep. Okay, so let's get our 6 pipes. Pipe 2. This is up. 3 is bottom. And then 5 is also bottom. And 4 is the one on top. P top. And 6 is also the one on top. Okay, now let's do our cloud. We write cloud is equal to c.getImage .getScaleInstance, and we will just give this dimensions of our own. So 200, 80, and then image scale smooth. Image scale smooth. Okay, great. Now let's draw these images onto our screen. Right here. We're going to do this in our paint component method, and we're going to draw the images over here. And this is how this will work. So first we're going to have the name of the image, then the x value of where we want to put it, then the y value, and then what it is relative to. In this case, it will be relative to our constructor class. So for the end bracket, we will always put this. Okay, we write g.drawImage, and then the name of the image. Let's draw the bird. Or actually, I'm going to draw the clouds first. Okay, we're going to have 4 clouds. Okay, let's set this to 500 and then 150. And then this one will be 600 and 150. Okay, now the bird image. We write g.drawImage, and then the bird, and we'll set this to bird x. And then for bird y, we have, since this is a double value, we will have to convert it into an integer first. So you write in brackets int, and then bird y. And then this. Okay, now let's do this for the 6 pipes. G.drawImage. We got pipe 1. Next, set 1. And then pipe 1y. And this. Okay, now it just gets easier because we can just copy this line of code and change the dimensions. Okay, this will be 3. This will be set number 2 of x's. And 3y. Okay, and I'll do this for the rest. Okay, last one. Okay. That's great. Now let's see them on our page. Okay, perfect. Now as you can see, we have a pipe, and we have our 6 pipes and the bird. And we also have our clouds for scenery. Okay. Okay, now let's make the pipes move and reset when they go out of the screen. First, let's make the y values of the pipes random each time the game starts. Let's first create a random object. We're going to do that over here. We write random, rand is equal to new, random. Okay, now we have created the object. So now let's set pipe 1 over here. We're going to set it to rand.nextInt 100 plus 280. This means that the minimum now is 280, and the maximum is 280 plus 100, so 380. Okay, now for the bottom pipe. Or sorry, the one on top. Right, next int, this one will be 130 minus 200. So now again, the minimum is 200, negative 200, and the maximum is now negative 200 plus 130, which is negative 70. Okay, now let's just copy and paste these. These are going to be for the odd ones, the ones on the bottom, and these will be for the ones on the top. Okay, now let's create a method for moving the platforms and resetting them. We're going to do that at the bottom over here with our other methods. Okay, let's move the pipes. Okay, we're going to write public void move pipes. That's the name of our method. Okay, and all we got to do right now is change the x values of the pipes. So let's move all 3 sets of pipes. We're going to write pipe x set 1 minus equals 3. And we're going to do that for the rest of the pipes as well. Okay, pipe number 3 and pipe number 2. Okay, now we're going to reset them after they go out of the screen. We're going to write if the x value of the first set of pipes, so pipe x set 1, is less than the width of the pipe, or the negative width of the pipe, then we just got to simply reset them. So pipe x set 1 is equal to 1050. So that's just going to be outside of the screen. And then the y values are going to be random. Let me just grab them from up here, because we will be needing them. Okay, and I'm going to just put them in comments over here, so we can easily grab them whenever we need. Let me just grab the other one. Okay, now I'm just going to put them over here. That's this one. Okay, and then for the second one as well. Pipe 2y, and that will be the one at the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to do this for the other 2 sets of pipes. So I'll just copy and paste this code and change what needs to be changed. 2, and this will be 3, 4. Okay, one last time. Set 3, and then pipes 5 and 6. Okay, now all we have to do is just repaint this over here. This is going to be our game loop in action performed. We call our method here. And this very important line of code that we need to type, this is called repaint. What this will do is basically just redraw everything on the page. Okay, now let's run our game and test it. Okay, there seems to be an issue. Let me just go back and see here. Oh, and yes, we forgot to add the timer variable. This timer variable will basically run, and it'll basically just like tell our game loop to run. So let me add the timer variable up over here. Okay, timer, and we write private timer. Okay, and we have to set a delay as well. Private int delay, and we'll set this to 8. Okay, and then in our constructor, we have to create a new variable. We write timer with lowercase t. Timer is equal to new timer, and then we set the delay, and then we put it relative to the constructor. Okay, and all we have to do now is put timer.start. Okay, now it should run, and I forgot that this was a big thing in Java. Okay, now we can see that the pipes reset and they move. Okay, yeah, and you can see that the y values are also changing every single time the pipes are reset. So that's really good. Okay, and one thing I just want to do is I want to push these pipes all the way to the back at the starting. So we'll set this to 1050, and they'll be 350 pixels apart each. So that'll be 1750. Okay, now let's run it. There we go. That looks a lot better. Okay, now let's make the bird jump. To do that, we will need to add 2 variables, one for gravity and one for the bird's velocity. First, let's create a gravity variable and set it to 0.2. This will be final, so we will put it into our finals variables list. We write private final double because it's not going to be an integer value. gravity and is equal to 0.2. Now let's create a velocity for the bird, private int, and then velocity y, and we will set this to 0. Okay, now let's make it so that when space is pressed, the bird jumps. We go here into our key pressed, right over here, and we write if e.getKeyCode, and this is equal to key event vk space, then change the bird's velocity by 5. So bird, or y velocity y, is equal to -5. Okay, now let's create a method for the bird's y movement. We go to the bottom over here with our other methods. Let me just get rid of this really quick. Okay, so let's create our method. Okay, bird jump, y movement. Okay, we write public void bird y movement brackets, and this is where we will apply gravity. Okay, and we write velocity y plus equals gravity, so we add gravity to the velocity of the bird. Okay, now we have to cap the velocity of the bird, so when it's falling, it doesn't go more than 5. So we write if velocity y is greater than 5, then set the velocity y to 5. Then all we have to do is add the velocity to the bird's y value. So add the velocity. So we write bird y plus equals velocity y. Now all we have to do is call this method in our action performed game loop. So that's over here, right underneath the pipes. We call bird y movement. Bird y movement. Okay, now let's test this. As you can see over here, when we run it, the bird is glitching. And that's because I just realized that we have an issue over here, and that is that we've set the velocity of the bird to an integer. So let me just go up really quick. Okay, so over here, it's all the way at the top. We must change the integer value of the bird and set it to double. Otherwise, they'll just get rounded with gravity. Okay, and now you can see the bird is jumping like it should be. Okay, that's great. Now let's move on. Now let's add collisions. We will add the collisions so that when the bird touches the pipes or goes below or above the screen, the game is over. And to do that, we will need to add hitboxes for each object and make it so that when they collide, a game over screen is shown. Okay, first of all, let's create a bunch of booleans. First of all, we're going to create the game over boolean so that whenever, and we're going to set this to false, so that whenever the game is over, we can set this to true and create a screen for this. Okay, and we're also going to be needing some debugging here. So let's also create a debug boolean and set this one to true. Now let's create our hitboxes. This is for collisions. So let's do private rectangle. We're going to create a rectangle for each object. We write bird rect, and this will be new rectangle, and then the dimensions of the bird. This bird x, bird y, the width and the height of the bird. Later we will also be needing to create a method that will update the hitboxes as we go. Oh yeah, and don't forget to change this to int since bird y is a double value. Now let's create them for the 6 pipes. We won't be needing them for the clouds because there won't really be any collisions for the clouds. Okay, and pipe 1 rect, or pipe rect 1. Okay, we set this to new rectangle and the dimensions. Okay, let's do this for the rest of them as well. Okay, last one. Okay, now let's draw these hitboxes just so that we can see what they look like. And I'm going to do this only when debugging is true because we don't actually want to see these hitboxes when our game is run. So this is going to be in the debugging process. So we're going to write if debug is true. So only if we are debugging, then show the hitboxes. So let's draw them. Draw rect. And then I'm just going to copy these from up there. First, we got to set a color as well. Let's set it to red because why not? And then I'm going to copy and paste so I can see these rectangles. Where'd it go? Okay, right there. Okay, this is the most annoying part. We need to copy and paste each code. Okay, I'm going to just copy this and we'll draw 6 pipes. You know, I think it would be easier if I just manually changed it instead of going back up each time. Okay, now let's run our game and see how our hitboxes look. Okay, and as we can see, the hitbox of the bird is very large, so I'll just shrink that, but the other hitboxes look just fine. Okay, and to do that, I'm just gonna move around this box a bit, around the bird. Let's move the x value to the right by 8, and the y will move down by 14. And the width will shrink by 20, and the height will also shrink by 30. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing for when I draw the rectangle. Okay, plus 8, plus 14, minus 20, and minus 32. Okay, now let's see. And there we go. The bird has a small hitbox. This will just ensure that our collisions are as natural as they can be. Okay, now let's add a game over screen. So this is whenever the bird and rectangle or bird and pipes collide, this screen will show. So we're going to write if only game over is true, then we create a screen. Let's just create a simple black screen, black game over screen, color.black, and then we'll create a rectangle, and we'll fill it 0, 0, and the width of the panel, and the height, which is 500. So this will cover the entire screen. And now let's make our game over text. Okay, we'll set this color to red. And now we'll set a font. So we write g.setFont, new font. And the one I'm going to be using is Arial. Let's make it bold. And let's set the font size to 40. Okay, now this is where we write our text. G.drawString. This will be game over. And the dimensions will be 310x and 180y. Okay, great. Now, in our action performed game loop, we're going to make sure that the methods only execute if game over is false. So if the game is not over, only then the game will run. So I'll show you guys what I mean over here. Right here, we're going to write if not game over. So this is when when the game is still running. Only then these methods will run. Okay. Now over here at the bottom, I'm going to make sure that the game ends. Right over here at the bottom, we have to make sure that whenever the bird and pipes collide, then the game ends. We're going to write if bird rect dot intersects pipe 1 rect pipe rect1, or, and then I'm just going to copy this entire code, or this entire condition, and just paste it and replace these rectangles with the other rectangles. Okay, pipe number 3, then we go 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and then in these brackets we'll write game over is true, is equal to true. Okay, now we'll also do that whenever the bird goes below or above the screen, the game also ends. So that's if the bird y is greater than 500, or the bird y is less than the negative of bird width. So that's whenever it goes up above the screen. Then the game over is set to true. Okay. Now we'll also need to create a method to update the hitboxes. This way the hitboxes will always stay with their objects. Okay, we write public void update hitboxes. And then we write bird rect.setBounds. And I'm going to do the thing again where we go up and copy and paste the rectangle of the bird. To make it easy for myself, I'm going to just bring it down to the bottom so I don't scroll up all the time. And just put it in comments over here. Okay, and then pipe rect1 dot set bounds. And then we'll get these ones as well. Actually, I think it'll be easier if I just manually do it from here. Number 2. Okay, and then 3. Oh, wait. Oh, this is supposed to be 1 over here. And then 1. And then 2. Yeah, I think I'll make less mistakes if I do it manually. Okay, last one. Okay, and one thing we gotta do is we gotta call this in our action performed game loop. We have to make sure that this is the last one called before game over conditions. Okay, this is a very important step. We're updating hitboxes. That's good. Okay, and I can see here that my IDE is giving me an error. Let me just go see what that is. Oh, that's this over here. I didn't remove this OR symbol. Okay, let's run our game. Okay, looking good, and there we go. It does work. I'm also just gonna set debug to false after this. Where's that sweet? Let me just test the pipes. Okay, this one works. Okay, that one works too. Okay, oh, I sort of lost track because I started playing my game. Okay, yep, works good when it goes down. And last one, okay, great. Now let's also set debug to false because we're done debugging. We don't really want to see these lines. And false. Okay, now let's add the score. For the score, what we'll do is we'll make variables and set them to false so that whenever the bird passes through the pipes, those variables turn to true and our score increases by 1. First, let's create these score variables. I'm going to do this over here. We're going to write private int score and set this to 0. Let's also add a high score. Okay, and we'll set this to 0 as well. Okay, and then let's draw them on our screen. Display the score. Set color. Color dot white. Oh, and I actually forgot to also add the past variables. So this will be whenever we pass through the pipes, and they'll turn to false, or they'll turn to true, and then we'll reset them, and the score will increase. So passed 1 for the first set of pipes, passed 2 for the second set, and third set. Okay, now we can draw the score on our screen. Okay, we set the color to white. We set the font, new font. Again, we'll use Arial. We'll make this bold as well. And we'll set the size to 30. Okay, now let's draw the actual thing. G dot draw string, score. Okay, and then we add the score, so plus score. This will be the integer, so whatever the score is, and the dimension, so where it'll be. Now inside the game over screen, let's also draw the score and high score, so it can show the user what their score and high score was after the game ends. Okay, and I can just grab it from up here. Okay, I'll just change these x and y values, and then to 30. Okay, now let's make the high score. So for the high score, we're going to write if the score is more than the high score, the current high score, then the high score will be replaced by the score. So high score is equal to score. And then we draw the high score. Okay, and notice I'm not putting set color or set font. That's because I've already wrote it up there, and as long as I don't change it, it will stay the same. Okay, and if the score is not greater than high score, then high score stays as is. Okay, now let's make a function to increase the score. We're going to do that over here at the bottom with our other functions. Okay, we're going to increase the score. We're going to write public void score increase. Okay, and then we're going to make sure that whenever the bird passes halfway through the pipe, then the score increases by 1. Okay, here the pass is already set to false, so we're going to write if the bird has not passed yet, or actually if the bird does pass, so if passed is true, and the bird is in between the pipe, so that's the x value of the pipe, plus halfway through the pipe. So pipe width divided by 2. Then all we got to do is increase the score by 1. Yep, and then all we got to do is increase the score by 1 now. Score plus plus. And then we set the passed 1 variable to true because the bird has passed through the pipe. Okay, then we do this for the other 2 sets of pipes. So again, if the bird has passed through it. Okay, there we go. Now all we got to do is whenever the pipes reset, we put the passed variable to false. So we put passed 1 to false. And then we do the same for the other 2 sets. Okay, now let's call this function right over here. Okay, now let's test it as well. Okay, we pass to the pipe and okay, no, there seems to be an issue because the others don't work, and whenever we pass to the first one, our score increases by 3. So let me go here, check through it. Oh, and this one over here, we set them all to 1. Okay, now it should work. Oops. Okay, and we pass to the pipe, and there we go. Score increases by 1. And yeah, it resets too. Okay, and we can see the score is displayed after the game is over. Okay, let's add the finishing touches for our game. We will add a start screen and a restart key. So first of all, let's add a restart key, and I'll add this right over here. Okay, let's display the button first. We write g.drawString, and we're going to tell the user to press enter if they want to restart. Let's draw this at 250 and 350. Okay, and then we go to our key pressed method, and this will be whenever the user presses enter, we restart the game. So if the game is over, so if the game screen is shown, the game over screen is shown, and the user presses enter. So e.getKeyCode is equal to key event dot vkEnter underscore enter. Then all we gotta do is reset the game. So let's create this variable or method. We're gonna create this at the very bottom. Okay, let's reset the game. We write public void reset game. And all we gotta do is initialize the positions of our objects. Okay, object positions, let's initialize them. So bird Y, we'll make this at the very top left, 50, and set one of x's to that. Then set number 2, pipe set 2, 1400, and then set 3 to 1750. Okay, now the y values. So 1y. We'll set this to between 280 and 380. And the second one we'll set between negative 200 and negative 70. 130 and then minus 200. Okay, and then I'm just going to copy these. Okay, and then we'll set 3 and 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, now we set the velocity of the bird to 0. So velocity y is equal to 0. And then we reset the score, but the high score would stay as is. The score is equal to 0. And then our booleans. So game over is now false because the user has restarted. Past 1 is false. Past 2 is false, and past 3 is also false. Okay, let's run our game and try this out. Okay, let me just really quick. Okay, press enter, and the game restarts. Perfect. Now let's see if the high score variable works as well. Okay, we have the high score of 3. Let's restart, and yeah, there we go. High score does work. Okay, that's great. Now let's create a start screen. So we're going to go to the top over here and create a new boolean called start. And we'll set this to true. Right over here, private boolean start, and this is true. Okay, and now just like game over, we'll create a screen for this one. I'll do this right over here. Okay, and then if start is true, then we create a screen. Okay, same screen, just black. And then we will create a rectangle. Okay, now let's also give a title. Okay, and the color I'll use, I've already pre-selected this color. So it's a nice shade of red. And the hex code is 950606. Okay, and then we set the font. Joseph font, new font, same font, I'm going to be using Arial. And then we make it bold, and we'll set it to 50. Font bold, and then 50. Okay, and then we draw the title. Draw string, Flappy Bird, 270 and 200. Okay, now let's create a button so that whenever we click the button, the game will start. For that, we'll go at the top over here and create a variable for the button. We'll write private JButton, and then we'll name it start button. Okay, and then we'll give it some values in our constructor class. Okay, I'll do this over here. Let's style our button. Start button. And then we'll give it new JButton, and then this is where the text will be shown. Start. Okay, and then we'll give it a border, not border, sorry, we'll give it a width and a height. So start button dot set bounds, the x value, y value of where we want it to be, and then the width and height. Now let's style this button. So let's set its background color to the same one as we set for the Flappy Bird title. Then color.decode. Same color. Okay, now let's give it a foreground color. So this will be its text. Set to foreground, and its color will be white. Okay, let's also give it a nice font. Dot set font. That will be Arial, bold, and font bold, and then the size. Okay, seems to be an issue. No. Okay, and the one thing we must do for it to work, or actually no, there is. Okay, anyways, what we need to do is we need to set the layout to null. This way, Java will not interfere with our dimensions that we put on our button. Okay, and then over here, oh no, there is an issue here. We didn't add something. However, we forgot the new font. Right, common Java issue. Okay, now let's add it to our start screen. We'll only add this if start is true. So if start, then add start button. Now for the start button to actually be clickable, we must add an action listener to it. So let's do this over here with our other action listeners. And we're going to write add action listener, start button dot add action listener, and this. Okay, now in our action performed loop, we must activate this button. So if the start button is pressed and the start variable is true, only then start the game by setting the start variable to false, and then the button will be invisible. So if start is true, or let's do the source first. If e.getSource, and if this means that if the start button is clicked and the start variable is true, then set start to false. So get rid of the screen. Okay, and then get rid of the button as well. So start button dot set visibility to true. So set visible false, sorry. Okay, and if we were to run the game, this keyboard would not work. And to fix that, we must write this command, request focus in window. Okay, great. Now all we have to do is over here, we have to write that if the game over is not true and the start is not true, so if the start screen is not showing, only then our methods will work. Okay, and then last thing, in our restart key, right over here, let's make start to true. So the start screen will show, and the button will also be visible again. True. Okay, and that's it. Let's run our game and see how it is. Okay, there we go. Perfect. We have a great start screen, and we press start, and it works. One thing I do want to fix is the position of the bird when we start. I don't want it to start at the bottom. Let's make it start at the top. Okay, now let's run it. We click the start button, and it works. Okay, score is increasing. Great. Okay, game over, and then we press restart, and there we go. Start screen is shown again. Okay, and that is it. The game is complete. Thank you all for watching.